Okay, so National Lampoon. What the hell is that?
Please tell me. I assumed it was some sort of improv group.
No, not quite.
What's a lampoon?
Lampoon means a joke or a spoof.
Oh.
So the Harvard Lampoon is a magazine, a humorous magazine.
Yeah. Oh.
Harvard campus in 1876 still publishes 5 issues a year.
Wow. I'll bet that's rich.
It is.
In 2 ways.
Now, until about the 1960s, and this is an abbreviated history, and I'm no expert, and I'm going to get things wrong. Okay. In the 1960s, up until the 1960s, the magazine was more specifically about life on Harvard. And I've noticed that in this dormitory, this thing happens, and the people in this dormitory are like that. But in the 1960s, it becomes a more different thing, looks outside the boundaries of Harvard campus, becomes more political, takes on current events, takes on the Vietnam War and stuff. And it also becomes sort of a pipeline into mainstream American comedy, specifically SNL, and then later The Simpsons. So many of the important Simpsons people come from the Harvard Lampoon.
Come from it, meaning they went to Harvard?
While they were attending university at Harvard.
And wrote
on staff at the Harvard Lampoon.
Okay.
Conan O'Brien is a giant alumni of theirs, and he was obviously on The Simpsons, but also Al Jean and Mike Reese, Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein, Greg Daniels, so many important comedy people, both on The Simpsons and on other things.
Writers specifically, some of them having crossed over into other things where they're in front of the camera.
Right.
Yes, because I feel like you named a lot of writers except for Conan O'Brien, who's a writer
too, and was a Simpsons writer.
Right. But he's so tall, you got to put him in front of the camera.
That's true.
You're
Well,
tall,
he
you
had
get
to
in
fight
front.
to get in front of the camera. He
used his height.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing with Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase was hired on SNL as a writer and not as a performer, and he had to lobby to get in front of the camera, and then he was the breakout star.
But he was a pill
The
during
worst-
that time.
Oh yeah.
Just fucking do one. Go ahead, Chevy.
So the Harvard Lampoon, a storied institution, but in the late 60s, 3 Harvard graduates who wrote on the Harvard Lampoon want to keep the party going, after graduation. And they licensed the Lampoon name from the Harvard Lampoon, and they start the National Lampoon magazine. Doug Kenny, Robert Hoffman, and Henry Beard are the founders of National Lampoon. Doug Kenny went on to write Caddyshack. So the first issue of National Lampoon was published in 1970.
Funny Farm is on this one. Is it the Chevy Chase movie?
I don't think it has anything to do with it.
Okay. All right.
This is a magazine, it's brashy. It's in your face. It publishes satire, fiction, editorials, parodies, and then goes on to produce radio and stage shows where future stars like Chevy Chase, John Belushi, Bill Murray, Gilda Radner, they get their start there, or at least make a name for themselves doing the radio and stage shows for National Lampoon. This is like basically a feeder system into the original Saturday Night Live. One of the writers for National Lampoon was John Hughes, future movie guy. And he writes some fiction, some stories, based on his own life. One is called Vacation 58, which a family goes to Disneyland and the dad punches Walt Disney in the face.
Oh, there you go.
And this gets adapted into the movie Vacation. There's also a story called Christmas 59 that gets adapted into National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Why is John Kennedy in the middle of that picture?
Is he? Well, it was the
Looks
time,
like him. In the blue jacket.
These stories are both set in the 50s. They are told in first person from the point of view of the son. I read Christmas 59. I can't remember if the son's name is Rusty. The dad's name is Clark. They are pretty faithfully adapted. And because it's John Hughes, it has his favorite trope, which is making fun of Asian Americans. As you can see, the buck-toothed caricature of a Thai man right there. And
lovely.
I don't even know if I should read the dialogue that John Hughes has.
Wait, but does he put that in his movies? I can't think.
Yeah, Long Duck Dong.
Yeah.
And there's that the actor who played that character is talked about the complicated legacy he feels he carries with him every day. Okay, so that's where these vacation movies start, is on the page of National Lampoon. But going back to the magazine, or the organization that makes the magazine, they decide they want to make movies. And so they start a production company. Matty Simmons, who runs the business operations of the magazine, he is the producer of the National Lampoon movies. Animal House in 1978 is a generation-defying hit, the highest grossing comedy film of all time. Have you seen
Still?
Animal House? No, at the time.
Okay. I've only seen it once. It didn't stick. It's something I've meant to revisit. It feels like a big comedy blind spot that I'm ashamed of.
I had seen it in high school a few times. I thought it was fine. I didn't totally understand why are people calling this one of the 10 funniest movies ever made. I watched it in the last week.
Well, isn't it kind of like Halloween, where if you watch Halloween now for the first time, you don't get why it's important, but you need to understand that there was nothing like it before it?
Maybe. I mean, comedy is similar to horror in that it's a lot based on context. What scares people maybe changes as time goes on, and what people find funny changes.
Well, and it's kind of like Elvis, right? Like you need something edgy enough that it pushes the needle forward in some kind of way. So I assume if this is genre defining, I'll bet it's, I mean, not as serious as like a sexual revolution that Elvis might have helped, but like maybe in the same way that God, what was the first one? Old School? Of that guild, of the Seth Rogans and the Vince Vaughns and I feel like that started a whole genre of a certain kind of
the frat pack.
The frat pack, yeah.
But I would keep that separate from the Seth Rogen, which is the sort of Canadian Judd Apatow verse.
True. Okay. Anyway, it just seems like it's like that. It's a genre starting or comedy type pioneer. Like,
it was the start of
like Porky's came after.
The genre that they call boob comedies.
Oh, good. Those are funny. Boobies go honk honk.
Now, I mean, what is interesting is, the movie's set in 1962 and the movie ends with all these wacky characters you've been watching. And it says like this guy went on to do this. And the joke is that these people went on to be senators and secretaries of defense and stuff.
Oh,
The idea being like all the people who are ruining the world right now in 1978, they started as these assholes.
It just makes me think of Blasey Ford. Why can't I think of
Christine Blasey Ford?
Right, but the guy.
Brett Kavanaugh?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is a bunch of Brett Kavanaughs.
Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
Sorry, I had to work backwards. I have to go with the most complicated name.
Where's she going with? Okay. Animal House. You should watch it because it's important and it's well made and well directed by John Landis. You're not going to laugh a lot, but it looks great. And, it has that 70s shaggy, like kind of slow moving charm to it. Don't watch it thinking you're going to see the funniest movie you've ever seen, but
that's a good tip.
It is worth seeing. They follow this up with the National Lampoon's Movie Madness and National Lampoon's Class Reunion.
I've never heard of either of these.
I've never seen them. They're both big disappointments.
Well, there you go.
But then the Vacation series starts in 1983. John Hughes.
These movie posters. Let's go.
Let's go, she says.
Let's go to the snow or to Paris or to Wally World. These are amazing.
1983.
I want all these, please.
1983, Chevy Chase is cast as the lead of National Lampoon's Vacation. These movies are spearheaded by John Hughes as producer and writer. Yes. 1983, John Hughes produces and writes National Lampoon's Vacation. The director is Harold Ramis. He of Caddyshack and Stripes and later Groundhog Day fame, and obviously a writer and star of Ghostbusters. This is a big hit. Chevy Chase, a giant movie star at the time. This movie's a big hit, has since become a classic. It's followed 2 years later by European Vacation, which was directed by Amy Heckerling, the director of Fast Times at Ridgemont High and director of 2 of our past episodes, Clueless and Loser.
Did John Hughes have Chevy Chase in mind or an actor at all to play his dad? In a sense, kind of in this very personal.
I'll have an answer for that later.
Okay. I would just like to know how on the mark are the personality traits of did Chevy Chase make Clark Griswold into something completely not seen on the page? It's just a Chevy.
Well, having read the story, I would say absolutely. Like the details of what happened are very similar, but these movies are all about the energy of the actors and performers and the way that they're directed.
Yeah.
They're also, they're set in the 80s. They're very different in terms of values. 4 years pass before the next sequel is produced, but they adapt John Hughes' Christmas 59 story. Every time they make a movie, they recast the kids, and the same is true.
Is it a gag
with Christmas Vacation,
or is it just needed?
No, in the I believe with European Vacation, I think it was Anthony Michael Hall who was not going to return as Rusty in the sequel, and Amy Heckerling apparently, when she knew she was going to recast the son, she wanted to go ahead and recast the daughter too.
Then they could at least make jokes about it. or it's not distracting because two distractions make a non-distraction.
Yeah, that's
It
true.
was smart.
It's better to have two different actors. Yeah.
Right. I think so.
What happens to National Lampoon movies after that? Well,
I forgot Van Wilder with my man here. Oh, Ryan Reynolds.
he's your man.
Oh, I love him. Him
You
and
do?
Jason Bateman. Those are my two men's.
They are?
How do you not know this about
Oh, I like Ryan Reynolds, but I also I'm fucking over him and his thing, and he only does one thing.
So good, though.
It's no longer good.
Oh.
I hate it. And I think it's sort of ruined movies too, in a way of the
Ryan!
we don't have to take it seriously. We know what you're watching is a piece of shit.
He's a superhero of some kind?
He's Deadpool. And he just plays Deadpool every time. Patrick Willems, the movie YouTuber that we've mentioned before, made a video recently about the star personas of Ryan Reynolds and of Dwayne Johnson. And at a certain point, he compared Ryan Reynolds to Chevy Chase. And I kept thinking about that. Like, Chevy Chase is kind of the antecedent of Ryan Reynolds because they're both very attractive men who are always high status. Like some people say, like prom king comedy.
Yeah, okay.
And that will wear off after a while because there's nowhere to go. And it's hard to keep rooting for somebody who has everything and wins everything.
Yeah. I've seen all these movies.
You've seen Senior Trip?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Loaded Weapon 1. Yeah. So Christmas Vacation is the last movie actually produced by National Lampoon, the organization. The magazine ceases publication in 1998, continues to exist to this day as just a company that will license the name, will license the brand. This podcast could be presented by National Lampoon.
I mean, did it actually have legs? It mattered. It still mattered. Once it was National Lampoon's Van Wilder, I remember thinking, "Oh, that's a throwback. Is that needed?"
Well, just look at the Wikipedia page of movies with the National Lampoon logo label, and it is very, very long. Obviously, this has got to have diminishing returns because look at how many of these movies.
It's Trump
exist that
Van
I have
Wilder
never heard
at
of.
this point. Trump Senior Trip.
Exactly. Yes. Trump Steaks, Trump Tower, Trump
Right.
Airlines. Back to Christmas Vacation. The director attached to the film.
I thought you were about to tell me Macaulay Culkin and Chevy Chase were going to be in a movie together. That would not work. Macaulay Culkin is the Chevy Chase of children. It's a Macaulay Culkin vehicle. Thank you.
And I was about to say they were, but I'm thinking of Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Yeah,
in Man of the House.
No, Jonathan Taylor Thomas can take a back seat. He's second banana to Tim Allen. Tim Allen's also someone who kind of takes over, if you ask me.
Does Tim Allen take
Comedic
over?
dads, I think he does.
Okay.
I think anything he's in becomes a Tim
Asked
Allen.
and answered. So the original director of the movie is Chris Columbus. He of the writing Gremlins fame, and as happens with many people who cross Chevy Chase's path, Chevy Chase ruins his life and is making his life a living hell.
At least he discovered America.
Chris Columbus says, quote, "To be completely honest, Chevy treated me like dirt, but I stuck it out and we even went as far as to shoot second unit. Some of my shots of downtown Chicago are still in the movie. Then I had another meeting with Chevy and it was worse. I called John Hughes, and said, there's no way I can do this movie. I know I need to work, but I can't do it with this guy. John was very understanding. About 2 weeks later, I got 2 scripts at my in-laws' house in River Forest. One was Home Alone with a note from John asking if I wanted to direct it. And then, his career took off after that. So yes, Chevy Chase, infamous for being difficult. I think maybe the number one example of a difficult man, a star who's very talented and obviously brings something to the table, but is basically impossible to work with, clashes with all kinds of directors and co-stars.
Can I ask a question that you definitely know the answer to? Is he married?
Yeah.
Great. And for a long time,
Wait,
the same person?
Let me find out the answer to that.
Did he find his own Beverly D'Angelo?
Looks like he's been married to the same person since 1982.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who's what's her name? Is it a Chase?
Janie Luke.
Chase.
Is it a Chase?
Chevy Chase.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stories about how much he hated being on Community. He was on Mark Maron's podcast a few weeks ago, and apparently he said, I got this quote. He said, quote, I honestly felt the show wasn't funny enough for me ultimately. I felt a little bit constrained. Everybody had their bits, and I thought they were all good. It just wasn't hard-hitting enough for me. I didn't mind the character. I just felt that I was happier being alone. I just didn't want to be surrounded by that table every day with those people. It was too much. end quote.
Well, that's interesting.
That's from Mark Maron's podcast, September 26th, I believe.
It makes me think a little bit differently about the needing to be alone part. I mean, he seems like an extrovert, but it sounds like he's definitely not. It sounds like maybe being in an ensemble cast or even having to share a little bit takes it out of him.
If you know about that, when you go back to Community, you see how many reaction shots of him are him by himself, how many insert shots are of him by himself, how much he's not in the shot with the rest of the cast in a show that is based on the chemistry among these people. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Donald Glover in the New Yorker in 2018, this New Yorker profile of Donald Glover by Tad Friend. He was, I think it was Dan Harmon, creator of Community, said about Donald Glover. He said, Chevy was the first to realize how immensely gifted Donald was, and the way he expressed his jealousy was to try to throw Donald off. I remember apologizing to Donald after a particularly rough night of Chevy's non-PC verbiage. And Donald said, I don't even worry about it. And Donald Glover said, quote, I just saw Chevy as fighting time. A true artist has to be okay with his reign being over. I can't help him if he's thrashing in the water, but I know a human is in there somewhere. He's almost too human. End quote.
I like that Glover. That's very insightful. I think that's a good way to put it. It kind of reminds me of the Mannequin and how there was nothing
from Mannequin.
Mannequin, yes. How Hollywood Montrose was not put off at all by whatever kind of weird thing that he who I can't remember his name.
Andrew McCarthy.
I know
Jonathan.
That name. Yeah, would throw at him. It's just like being surrounded by theater kids and artists and eccentric people and people who are like method acting and like doing vocal exercises and all these weird like superstitious routines and stuff. I mean, it's got to just make you kind of numb to anybody's process after that. And also being a comedian, he's got to be very used to being surrounded by super competitive people. There could only be one comedy it guy at a time, only one comedy black guy for sure, I'm sure. And I'll bet he's smart. I mean, just insightful enough and has had it happen to him enough to know that anyone fucking with me is threatened by me. It's a compliment. It's a compliment, even if it's not camaraderie.
Yeah, and you're like, Chevy Chase, you're a musician too, and you're a writer and a performer
right,
like me.
Right, he's a musician. I always forget that.
You were,
a really
I'm
good
sure,
one.
yeah, in 1975, you're like, yeah, man, I was you once too.
Wait, Chevy Chase was. I was saying I forgot Donald Glover was.
Oh.
I didn't mean to. No disrespect. I do like his music. I just wasn't thinking of him like that. And yeah, Chevy Chase was an actual musician. I thought he was just
played
in
piano.
That. Okay, I just thought he was in Call Me Al just because it's funny that he's in it.
He plays piano in everything he's in, like.
And it's real.
Yeah. No,
anyone who knows a piano person, if that's their thing,
yeah, they
really do find a way to fold it into any hotel you're in with them, and they see one weight tucked away in the lobby. Oh, let's just go stand over there.
Yeah, even people who can't play the piano, like me, are like, ooh, a piano, eh?
You're not a piano.
Jingle bells.
I wasn't thinking of you when I was making this.
Oh, okay. I was flattered.
That's why I'm saying it's like specifically a person. Maybe what do you think is the most likely instrument to play if you are someone who's very into playing the piano? Like that's your main thing. What does that give itself to? You know,
guitar.
Bass is guitar. Okay. I was just thinking because if it's flute, then there's not usually a flute lying around a hotel lobby, right. So you just kind of gotta.
No, guitars, you will find guitars everywhere. You'll find pianos everywhere. And guitar to piano, it's very one-to-one.
Really?
This note on this note on this fret is this note on the piano. But piano's that with all instruments, but they're just pretty easy beginner instruments. What? I
feel slapped in the face since I can play nothing. None of them are easy.
But you play your voice. Sing us a tune, Lacey.
I think Louis Armstrong is all I can go for today. I see skies are blue. That wasn't that bad.
So they bring aboard Jeremiah Chechik, and he was he was a music video and commercial director prior to Christmas Vacation, but he was working on another movie here for Warner Brothers when Chris Columbus dropped out, so they gave it to him. He went on to do future episode of Load Bearing Beam's Benny and June, a movie Lacey likes. He did the 1998 The Avengers, unrelated to the superheroes.
Yeah.
That movie sucks.
Yeah,
The only other movie of his that I've seen. And then he basically works in TV the rest of the time.
Okay.
Chevy Chase is our star. He was 45 years old at the time. And Lacey, he's 6'4".
Thank you for telling me. Is it weird that as a young guy, I think he looks just like your dad as a young guy, and right now he looks like my stepdad, Rick, in this picture?
He does look like Rick. Oh, my God.
Just like him.
Wow.
That could be him. Rick, holding out on them dollars.
My father. Yeah, my young father does look like a young Chevy Chase.
Very much.
There are photos and videos of my dad on Christmas wearing a tie, and I always think of them and think one day because my dad's not a tie wearing guy. My dad's a blue collar, salt of the earth type. He drives a big truck, vroom vroom. Mm-hmm. But I always think I should wear a tie on Christmas, and then I never do.
Please don't. Ew.
Wouldn't it be charming?
No.
If we all, no.
I hate when you wear a tie.
What?
Hate it. You look so uncomfortable. It makes me uncomfortable the whole time. I just want you to feel comfortable. I just want you to go, do that thing. I like you in a loosened tie.
Why can't you tell me these things in the present?
Because you don't have really, if it's a situation where you need to wear a tie, you need to wear one. What are you going to do?
But then you tell me I look handsome. It's a lie.
Well, I'm not saying you don't look handsome. I'm just saying you also look uncomfortable.
I don't know what to believe with you.
I guess my discomfort and worrying about how you're feeling takes a precedent to, does my husband look handsome this way?
A few days ago, I bought new shoes.
Thank God.
And I had to tell Lacey because I splurged and spent $70 on shoes after having worn out my previous pair that I've worn for 10 months. Wore them so long that the tongue of the shoe came out. So I had to get these new shoes, and I'm like, hey, just FYI, I spent $70 on shoes. And she says, oh, thank God, I fucking hated your old shoes. And I was like,
I hated those shoes. But you had already, okay, the same concern you had when you bought the new pair, which was, hey, I splurged. It's not a splurge, but I knew you'd already also done that when you bought the last pair, right? You always have some weird guilt around buying new tennis shoes. And so once they were on your feet, what were we going to do? I'm not going to, I hated them, but I love you.
But my criteria for buying shoes is I have to have a 12 wide, and you go on, the website of the store.
You know what I'm saying, ladies?
Check for a 12 wide, and they only have one pair, and so I buy that pair.
Yes, love. What do you want from me? I can't help it that I hate it.
Tell me your honest opinion in the present tense is what I'm saying.
What are you going to do with that brand new pair of 12 wides who are unique, beautiful unicorns that don't exist in other kinds? You're going to go make a shoe, Matt?
No, you are my clothes consultant.
How about this,
you
Matt?
pick out shoes for me and I buy them.
How about this? Why don't we take a step back? Instead of you buying the shoe and then letting me see them on your feet, like, look what I did. Ask me. Say your shoes are worn out. And then I'll do that.
Yeah, but I need new shoes right away because I can't even wear my current shoes.
So that sounds like a planning issue.
Yeah.
Maybe once you feel the bottom of your actual skinned foot touching concrete through your shoe, give me a little email.
I will certainly do that in the future.
So I think we successfully traced this issue back to something you did wrong. So I feel good about it.
Good, yes.
Oh, he's 6'4". Chevy. Excuse me.
Lacey has been just
I've been horny,
gushing her fucking jeans lately over these men. Andrew McCarthy.
I'm hamming it
Andrew
up.
McCarthy. Oh, orgasming all over me.
Hey, you made me mess up my festive bow.
I don't like it.
What? Matt, you need to tell me these things in the present. I've been orgasming all over this podcast thinking you really liked it.
I know. Now you're embarrassed. See?
No, I'm not.
No, I know.
But I will stop.
Chevy Chase. No, don't stop.
That's right. Don't stop.
Well, stop that. Stop what you're doing.
Oh.
Stop saying let's go also.
Once it gets in, Matt, it's hard. I know it's a dumb thing for me as a 40-year-old, almost youthful woman to say, let's go. I can't even say it without my prepubescent voice cracking.
What do you think of Chevy Chase?
I think you can eat it. I love him. I'm always saddened to find out that someone I think is amazing on screen is a dick. I don't like that. I don't want to know that. But it does change how I feel about him generally when I see him.
But among the Hollywood dicks,
I guess I don't know who they are. Can we line them up?
I mean, who are some other of Hollywood's?
Literally, you're the one that tells me these things. My love, I don't know. My hot, well-shoed husband, whose shoes could get it.
I was sad to find out Timothy Olyphant, from Justified.
Oh, come on, he's got nice guy face.
He and Walton Goggins,
No.
Boyd, we're not talking. We're not on speaking terms. Yes. No, I don't want to know that.
I don't like it when they don't love each other.
Okay, but among the Hollywood dicks, he is like King Dick. Like
King Dick.
As just utterly uninterested in working with people, and giving anything other than what he wants to do. Mm-hmm. Not interested in sharing the screen. Not interested in collaboration, which is the name of the game. It's what this is all about.
You can't have the energy you've got now forever, Chevy. You're gonna need someone to carry you one day if you want to keep being on the big screen.
And the only
or small screen.
The only real comeback he's had since the 90s is on Community, which is a minor comeback because it wasn't it's like a Totemic show now, but it's not like it was ever a giant hit, and he hated being on it. And it's fun to watch it because of that sort of the idea of the Pierce character is he's basically an old and sad version of all the Chevy Chase characters from Caddyshack. He could be the character from Caddyshack who thinks he's the coolest and the hottest and the richest, but doesn't understand that everyone hates him and that he's coming across as an asshole to everybody. That's interesting to watch, but he wasn't interested in playing that. There's this oral history of Christmas Vacation that was published by Rolling Stone in, I believe, 2019 for the 30th anniversary. And this is not a great oral history.
Oh.
And Chevy Chase only has a few quotes, but they really play them up. He says about John Hughes, quote, "I never knew John that well. If you see his films, he had a great vision of teenagers growing up. In a way, he was a teenager, still battling those awkward growing years. Maybe he was a genius, and God bless him if he was. There's so few of us." End quote. But it's it's funny.
I love him.
But it's also they clearly got so little from him. They're like, "Hey, what do you remember about John Hughes?" He's like, "Oh, good. Good at writing teenagers."
He's still a teenager, right? Yeah, that sounds right. Okay. I'm the only one that grows up.
Just summarize your thoughts. Yeah. But we got so little out of him. But yeah, even in this interview, you can detect the bitterness because he's talking about Johnny Galecki, and he's like, "Oh, he's such a sweet kid. We had such a good time together. Now he's making $100 million a year and I'm sitting here."
Well, I mean, I guess it's just that he's not capable of complimenting or feeling really good for someone else without throwing himself in to anchor it. He sounds like a sociopath.
Yeah. But the person he seems most capable, the person he seems to really respect, and the person who seems to enjoy working with him is Beverly D'Angelo.
Yay! So they really, that understanding of each other was really there.
The way that the quotes from him are about talking about her, the way that she talks about him, and the amount of stuff that they've done together suggests that they have a good working relationship. Okay. So she was 35 at the time. She's 5'2".
Thank you,
She's
Matt.
a lot shorter than him.
And 1 inch shorter than me.
I mean, she, early career highlight was playing Patsy Cline and Coal Miner's daughter, supporting role in that movie, but she got a Golden Globe nomination. She's a great singer. She played Lurleen Lumpkin in The Simpsons in Colonel Homer, the season 3 episode, where she plays a country singer and does her own singing.
I don't remember her in Hair.
She's in Hair. Also, your favorite movie, American History X.
Stop calling it my favorite movie.
And it's very successful on TV. They all their quotes, they mentioned, trying to find another project to work on together. They had a pilot called Chev and Bev in 2015 that they filmed, but that ADC didn't move forward with. And they did appear as their characters in the 2015 Vacation reboot / legacy sequel. And just for, the Vacation series, there was another sequel in 1997, Vegas Vacation, that National Lampoon was not involved in.
Okay. I don't like that one.
It's not in the title.
I remember liking it.
It's
been years. There's
a made-for-TV sequel to Christmas Vacation called Christmas Vacation 2 at Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure.
Oh, good
You seen this?
No. That's whew.
But Randy Quaid and Miriam Flynn are back as Eddie and Catherine. The only other thing that was interesting about this movie is that Dana Barron, who played Audrey in the 1983 Vacation returns as Audrey.
Okay.
This time. So it's like, I'll make a sequel to because this is Christmas Vacation 2. I wasn't in Christmas Vacation 1, but I'll be in. This is now one of the only examples of my favorite thing to think of, which is an actor returning to a role after it had been recast. So Sean Connery in Diamonds Are Forever returned to play the character after George Lazenby had played him. I can't think of many examples of this, so I'm glad to add another one to the list.
Darn. Thought I had one. A lot of doting, I want to say doting wives, but maybe that's not it. I'm just noticing a lot of like healthy, in love and in lust adult couples in these movies. Because, you know, Catherine and Eddie are also totally horned up for each other.
Although it is, to watch the first Vacation movie where Clark is such a piece of shit and is trying to cheat on his wife the whole time, but the movie doesn't like seem to acknowledge that this is a very mean and villainous thing to do to your family. It's just like, oh, that's just dad being dad. He's trying to fuck the lady in the pool. And then his wife sees him, and instead of being like, we're going to get a divorce, you're trying to end our marriage, she's like, I haven't been nice enough to you. I haven't been paying enough attention. I'll get naked with you in the pool. They're much nicer to each other in European Vacation and much like hornier for each other.
Okay.
Although he makes a sex tape of her without her consent, and then it gets out, and then she becomes, a successful sex actress in Italy.
She is hot.
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm creaming my jeans over her.
All right. Ew, cream jeans.
She can get it.
All right.
So
Let's
now
not go.
We're going to talk about Christmas Vacation. Are you ready, Lacey?
Shitter's full.